As a teacher, I create a positive and comfortable classroom environment that allows my students to learn through many different techniques and strategies. I allow my students' natural curiosity lead them to discovery, while continuing to guide them along on their journeys. Eventually, curiosity becomes a habit and is always welcomed in my class. Our class is highly interactive on a daily basis. The students retain the information through discussions and active learning and participation. My role as their leader is to model effective communication skills and create interesting and engaging discussion questions. Every child brings their own knowledge and experiences to class. By allowing them to work collaboratively, they can learn from each other. They then begin to gain the confidence needed to believe in themselves and eventually in one another. Since my students were so inspired and intrigued by Kevin Henkes and the books he's written, I took the opportunity to create an author study to dig deeper and get to know Kevin Henkes a little bit more. Since we had previously read many of the books written by the author we were studying, we had a variety of questions ready and were excited to do some research to learn more not only about the author, but about his characters and his books he's written as well. The students were highly intrigued, interested, and excited about what they had learned about Mr. Henkes. As we began adding details to our class fact map, the students had the opportunity to share what they had found. Naturally, highly engaging discussions were created, and the students wanted to know more. They began to dig deep and think about what authors and illustrators do and why they do it. As I observed the excitement and motivation around me increase, I couldn't deny my same excitement about Kevin Henkes' books and the impact that his characters were having on myself and my students. So, of course, my 1 to 2 week author study became a unit study, eventually completing over 3 to 4 weeks, but totally worth it. In the beginning of the school year, my students completed a book report that focused on identifying traits of a character. The students created their characters using pumpkins. Many of my students chose books written by Kevin Henkes because they related to the characters in his stories and were impacted by his words and the experiences his characters had encountered. Reading numerous books written by the same author allows for endless lessons and opportunities to get students excited about reading and art. After reading a variety of books, we had a good sense of who the characters were, and we also practiced paying attention to the details in the illustrations and began to truly appreciate the art and the work that goes into creating a story. Since we had the opportunity to read so many books, we were able to practice numerous concepts and strategies that strengthened the students' comprehension and sparked an interest in reading, writing, and drawing. After completing our author study and analyzed a variety of books he had written, we decided to continue our research and do a book analysis on the story Chrysanthemum. As I read the story Chrysanthemum, I could see the connections that were being made in my students' eyes. Many of them had a personal connection with the character Chrysanthemum and were able to relate to the experiences and the overall theme of the story. After reading the story, we created a class story map that identified the story elements. Then, we engaged in discussion and discussed the overall theme in the story. As I read, students identified challenging vocabulary words that they were unfamiliar with by highlighting. They then participate in a digging through the dictionary lesson that included identifying the word and its meaning. Once the students understand the meaning of the words, they are then able to connect the words with the character's emotions and the traits, then extend it to the illustrations that are found in the story. I often give my students a challenge of show me, don't tell me. We take many opportunities throughout the day to practice the use of vocabulary, even while walking in line or listening to music in class. By utilizing the mirroring strategy, students are able to visualize or reflect on the parts of the story.
Mirrors up. When we summarize, we take all the information we read. Find the most important parts. Shrink it down. And retell it in our own words. Here's the way.
Once we had a thorough understanding of the overall theme in Chrysanthemum, we began our character analysis. As I reread the story, the students identified traits that Chrysanthemum portrayed and then provided the evidence of the trait on a thinking map. Students then worked collaboratively to present their evidence by providing reasoning and using evidence by pulling words and phrases from the text and referring to the illustrations found in the story. The students were able to truly identify and define Chrysanthemum. In the beginning of the story Chrysanthemum, it says, "Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew, and when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name." As we grow, we begin to understand and appreciate who we are. The students were able to identify and relate their own lives and their own traits of themselves to the same traits of Chrysanthemum. Students began to understand that just like us, and us growing over time, characters can change from beginning to end as well. Using similar strategies in defining Chrysanthemum, we began to define ourselves and recognize how we grow and change over time as well. The students completed a project that involved conducting an interview with their parents to inquire and learn about their names, as well as a writing assignment that portrayed all the characteristics that defined who they are. In their I Am posters, the students recorded evidence of words or phrases that defined them. We then extended the lesson by creating a name plant. The students were asked to use parts of their plant to define who they are and how those parts of the plant help them to grow tall and strong. Each day, I ask my students, "How do we lead?" They respond, "With love." It is important for me as an educator to instill a strong sense of confidence and independence in my students. I want to create and mold good people that lead with love and possess a strong desire to become a lifelong learner. I want my students to want to motivate, help, and inspire others and ultimately make others smile. Having a class full of writers and artists inspires me to continue fostering their artistic independence and expose them to the possibility of becoming future authors and illustrators. In our class, we understand and appreciate the power of crafting words together along with art, and the Charlotte Huck Children's Literature Festival is the perfect place to bring my students to let them dive into a world of books and imagination.